This episode of Brains on Games will preview a game that's about organizing your zoo. Welcome to Brains on Games. I'm Dr. Brian McDonald. In this episode, we are going to preview a game that's all about organizing your zoo. It's a game for younger kids that was sent to me not too long ago by Simon Tsoi over at Vinecliff Games. I hope I said your name right, Simon. This is a game called Zoo Square. Now, Zoo Square is a game that you can play with between 1 and 6 players. Games go really fast, between 5 and 20 minutes. You can play the game with kids age 6 and up, so it is appropriate for younger kids. And in fact, even younger than 6, you could play it as a puzzle instead of a race, because that's what this game is all about. Let's take a deeper look at Zoo Square. Zoo Square is a very light game where you're trying to be the first to 12 points. That's how you'll win this one, is by reaching 12 points. You're organizing the zoo in a certain way that I'll show you, but what you're basically doing here is you're racing to be the first one to complete a puzzle. The player who completes their puzzle first is going to get 3 points in the speed mode of the game. The second place player gets 2, the third place gets 1, and nobody else gets any points at all. So it is a race to 12. You've got this little scorecard here in the prototype and a little meeple to go on with it. I always play green, so I grabbed the green meeple for the video. There are 2 main modes to this game. There's the speed mode where everybody's racing at the same time to build a puzzle. And then there's more of a thinker mode where you're looking at the puzzle pieces and then you're racing to find the solution to that puzzle. And then you've only got 10 seconds to build it once you call out Zoo Square, because you're going to be the one who's going to build that puzzle. So in the regular speed mode, which is the way that we played it, everybody is going to have 4 cards that are face down in front of them. So you deal out 4 of these cards, and the game itself might change. There might be some additional cards added, this is a preview, right, of a game that's coming up on Kickstarter soon. But you've got a thick deck here of these squares, and each player is going to have 4 of them. Once everybody's got their 4 cards and you're ready to start playing, everyone flips over their cards so they're all face up, and this is the puzzle you're going to be building. Your goal here is to build your zoo so that you don't have different animals in the same pen. You either want to have 2 or more of the same animal, or some blank spaces. You can see in the middle here, this would be legal just for this spot because you've got a lion and then 3 blank spaces. However, none of the other spaces really work because you've got an elephant and a lion in here together, and an elephant and an alligator over here. So you want to turn things around and move them so that the same animals are in the same pen. And that is the challenge. Everybody's playing simultaneously. You're racing to be the first one to get it. Then you call out Zoo Square. Everybody tries to finish. And then you're going to begin counting up points. But when you're racing like that, it's so easy to make mistakes. So I don't even know if I can do this in real time, but I could see myself maybe flipping things like this first and foremost. And that actually works. Can you imagine? That was pretty quick this time. So I've got 4 lions here. We've got 2 alligators on the outside. We've got elephants and alligators in a blank space, and peacocks. Out here on the corners, it doesn't matter what's on the corners because that's not going to affect anything. But just by fluke, I was able to put that together quite quickly. And that's what the game is all about. That's why it works so well with young kids, because you're just sort of turning and moving these pieces and trying to match up the animals. In the thinker mode of the game, you're going to have 4 of those squares in the middle of the table, and everybody's going to be looking at them and trying to solve the same one. Without being allowed to move them, you're looking at the way that those cards are arranged, and then you're trying to figure out a solution so that you can solve it in 10 seconds or less. So you're really trying to remember where things are and do some rotation mentally, because you can't physically turn the pieces to see what they're going to look like. And then whoever's brave enough to be the first one to call out will try and build that puzzle. Now, if they can't build it in 10 seconds, or if they make a mistake, there's a penalty. And the penalty is they have to draw 4 more of these cards, and they can't guess the main puzzle until they've solved another one that's in front of them. Usually on Brains on Games, I mean, my kids are older, they're 21 and 19, so I talk about games for 10 and up, for 14 and up. Sometimes I get to play with the younger nephews, so I get to try out games that are more appropriate for younger kids. This is one for kids who are very young. I don't usually talk about those games, and that's my question for you this episode. If you're going to play a game with a very young child, a preschooler even, what kinds of games do you like to play? You can leave the answer to that question in the comment section below the video. What skills, though, are you working on when you play a game of Zoo Square? Well, this is one where you're exercising some spatial skills. You're trying to figure out how these pieces are best going to go together. Here I am building the puzzle as we're talking about it, and maybe this would work as a solution, and it doesn't, because look on the sides here. So already I've made a mistake, but it's a game where you're using those spatial skills and some mental rotation skills, because you don't want to just start moving things willy-nilly, because trial and error isn't necessarily going to work super well on this game. Instead, you're imagining, okay, well, if I've got a line here and a line here, how is this best going to fit together? So mental rotation is an important skill. Now, if you're playing the thinker version of the game and you're just looking at the cards and trying to imagine what they'll look like turned all different ways without moving anything, well, that's a good example of a working memory activity. Working memory is the whiteboard in your mind where you keep information so you can do something with it. And here you're juggling the locations of all these animals while using the mental rotation skills to imagine how these cards will look if they're rotated around or slid around in different ways. Final thoughts, though, about Zoo Square. Now, this is a preview. The game is coming up on crowdfunding, so pieces might change. There might be some additional rules or some extra cards or squares in here, so things might change a little bit. But final thoughts based on this prototype that I've played is right away, this one seems like it's perfect for those younger players. It's got the animal theme and the artwork that's definitely appealing to those younger kids. I love the idea that it's something where you could just put it together as a puzzle for a child who's very young. And you could have a 4-year-old who's turning these things around and trying to get the animals to match up, and then doing it as a race. Doing it as a race is the hardest thing for me. I'm not the best at these speed games, and I never win. It seems like I do the show and you learn about all the games I'm not good at, but this is a game that's not really the kind that I'm most skilled at. But certainly I do like that theme, and that idea of how everything fits together is one that I really think the younger kids will appreciate. The fact that the roads and the fences all line up is one that I think will be appealing as well. So you've got a game where you're racing to do that spatial stuff, but it's simple with appealing art. You've got the animal theme. Those are, it's simple to learn. It's easy to set up. You saw how long it took me to explain this game, and that was not very long. So it's another good reason why it's a nice introduction to these kinds of puzzle games for the younger kids. Now, if there's a downside, well, each player might be working on their own puzzle, and that would mean, there's not that much interaction other than you're trying to be faster than everyone else. And some players really do like those games where you're interacting with each other more extensively than just trying to be faster than everyone else. Simultaneous play is a mechanism that not everyone loves. I think, these games, I wouldn't necessarily always want to play simultaneously playing games, especially when you're racing, because I'm so terrible at them. But these are games where there's no downtime. I mean, until you're finished the puzzle and then you're watching everybody else finish it up. So I do like that idea that you don't have one player who's kind of waiting and waiting and waiting for other players to finish their turn. If you're playing this game with 6 players, it's still going to be fast. In fact, it might be faster because more people are trying to come up with the solution all at the same time. So it doesn't drag at any time. You're just building this puzzle as fast as you can. You're racing against your friends or your family members, and you're trying to put these animals together in the right pens so that they don't eat one another. And that, in a nutshell, is Zoo Square. I will include information about the crowdfunding campaign in the show notes to this video. And if you have any questions or comments or suggestions, if you want to answer my question about games with very young kids, I'd love to hear all of those answers. You can leave those in the comment section below the video, or you can email me at brian@brainsongames.ca. Brainsongames.ca is the website. That's where future episodes will go. The previous ones are up there already. Brains on Games is the Twitter handle and the Facebook page and the Instagram feed, so we're all over the place. And if you enjoyed this video and you want to be notified of future ones, you can head on over to YouTube and click that subscribe button. Thanks for joining me, and hopefully I'll see you next time.